Then everything changed. I felt it before I understood it. A sudden pull, a force drawing me upward at incredible speed. It was like gravity had reversed. I didn't move on my own. I was being taken. There's a thin line between what we see and what we think we see. A line that separates the known world from the shadows that watch us when we're not looking. Tonight, we step across that line into a realm of mystery, fear, and impossible truth. This is Strange Encounters. It was Sunday, January 5th, a quiet afternoon. I was out behind my house in the open field, just setting up my camera. The air was calm and everything felt still. I hadn't even taken a picture yet when I heard this strange sound, a low electric hum, almost like the whir of a motor. It didn't belong out there in the countryside. I turned around and that's when I saw it. There, just above the trees, hovered a massive object, circular, metallic, and silent except for that faint electric vibration in the air. It must have been close to 100 feet across, maybe more. I guess it was about 2,500 feet away, though it was hard to tell. I watched it glide over my brother's house, and then it drifted almost directly above me. I just stood there, frozen, staring up. Then, just as suddenly, it reversed direction and moved toward another clearing. That's when I grabbed my camera and began taking pictures. The craft moved smoothly, almost deliberately, like it knew I was watching. Then everything changed. I felt it before I understood it. A sudden pull, a force drawing me upward at incredible speed. It was like gravity had reversed. I didn't move on my own. I was being taken. The next thing I remember, I was inside a small circular room, maybe 5 feet across. The walls were lined with what looked like glowing lenses, almost like camera lenses, pulsing with an orange light that faded in and out. The floor beneath me was made of metal grating, glowing the same way. I couldn't move. My body was frozen except for my head. I could look around, but that was it. The light in the room flickered in a rhythm, steady, almost alive, and I had this overwhelming feeling that I wasn't alone, but I couldn't see anyone there. I don't know how long I was inside. To me, it felt like maybe 30 seconds, but when I came to, I was back on the ground, lying near the same spot I'd been standing before. My camera was on the ground beside me. The UFO was gone. I don't remember being set down. It was just there one moment and gone the next. When I got back to the house, my father said I'd been gone much longer than I thought. Maybe 45 or 50 minutes. To me, it felt like only 2 or 3. My brother noticed I was pale and shaking. Later that day, I learned that one of our old neighbors, a woman who lived about 3/4 of a mile away, had seen something around the same time. She described a shiny object hovering near our area before it disappeared behind the trees. Our dog was there that day too, an Airedale. She'd been close to me before it happened. Afterward, she changed. She lost her energy, stopped acting like herself, like something in her had gone dull. I had taken 6 photographs of the object, all on 35mm film. Most developed fine, though one was badly overexposed. A photographer in Belleville was analyzing them, and later I sent copies to researchers, including Dr. J. Allen Hynek, who was involved in the U.S. Air Force's study of UFOs, the most famous being Project Blue Book. But what stayed with me most wasn't the pictures, it's what came after. For nights afterward, I had dreams, the same dream over and over. I'd see that same craft hovering outside my window. I could hear the hum again, feel it in my chest. Sometimes in those dreams, I'd hide under my bed, terrified it was coming back for me. Even now, I can't explain what happened. I can only tell you what I saw, what I felt, and how real it was. They say time changes how you remember things, but that day, the light, the sound, and the feeling of being pulled away, those things have never faded. Every time I look at the sky, I still wonder, why me? And what really happened inside that craft? It was the spring of 1991, April or maybe May. I was 10 years old, living with my mother in a 5-story apartment block in Riga, Latvia. Our building stood across from an old military airplane factory, a place that always seemed to hum with secrets, even during quiet nights. That evening, around 11 o'clock, I was sitting on the windowsill of our 4th-floor apartment. It was something I often did, especially when my father was late coming home. I'd perch there, looking out across the courtyard, watching lights flicker on and off in neighboring flats, neighbors coming and going, the quiet rhythm of nighttime life. It was a familiar view, comforting in its stillness. And then something blinked. It was subtle, just a quick flash of light caught at the edge of my vision, off to the right, above the roof of the building across from us. I turned to look, but there was nothing there, just darkness and the faint outline of the rooftop against the sky. I shrugged it off and looked straight ahead again. A minute later, another blink, again from the corner of my eye. I turned quickly this time. Nothing, just the same roof, half a football field away, still and silent. This went on for 15 minutes or so, the same maddening pattern. A flash I could only see when I wasn't looking directly at it. And then finally, I saw it. Sitting there on the rooftop, clear as day, or as clear it could be on that dark Riga night, was a formation of lights, one large red light pulsing slowly every 2 or 3 seconds, and beneath it, a row of 5 smaller blue lights. They pulsed faster, their rhythm out of sync with the red one above them. Together, they formed an odd shape, like the outline of a boot lying on its side, facing left. The thing couldn't have been more than the size of a room, 7 to 9 meters long, maybe 3 meters high. It just sat there on that roof, half a football field away, glowing in the dark with this silent, hypnotic rhythm. I called for my mother. She came to the window, but she said she didn't see anything. I kept pointing, frustrated. Right there, the red light, see it? She looked again, squinting into the darkness. Nothing. But I kept staring, refusing to look away. And after a few more minutes, she gasps, "Wait, I see it." We both stood there, watching the lights pulse and shimmer in the distance. She picked up the phone and called the neighbor who lived directly above us on the 5th floor. He was half asleep when he answered, but she insisted he go to his window and look. He didn't see anything either. A few minutes later, he came down to our apartment. We pointed it out, told him exactly where to look, and eventually, just like us, his eyes seemed to adjust. He saw it too. The 3 of us watched the lights for nearly an hour. They didn't move. They didn't make a sound. It was as if they were there, but not there, visible only once your eyes learned how to see them. By midnight, my father still wasn't home. The neighbor eventually went back upstairs. My mother told me to go to bed, though neither of us could stop glancing back toward that roof. I finally did as she asked. The next morning, everything looked normal again. Same building, same roof, no lights, no sign that anything unusual had ever been there. When my father got home and we told him what we'd seen, he didn't believe us. No one did. But I know what I saw. Those lights were real, visible only once your mind was tuned into them, as if they existed just slightly out of phase with our world. Even now, decades later, I still remember that slow, steady red pulse and the blue lights dancing beneath it, just sitting there in silence, next to that military factory in Riga, like something waiting to be seen. It was around 3 in the morning sometime in 1990 in Colorado Springs. I was just a kid then, maybe 10 or 11, walking home with my mom through the quiet trailer park where we lived. The air was cool, still, and heavy with that strange calm that always seems to settle over the world just before dawn. We'd been at her boyfriend's trailer earlier that night, just a block away. Things had gotten ugly, shouting, breaking glass, and the police ended up taking him to jail. I remember my mom's face, red from crying, and we started the short walk home. The streetlights buzzed faintly, casting that dull orange glow over the rows of trailers. We were maybe 2 trailers away from ours when the night exploded in light. It wasn't like a flash or a car's headlights. This was something else. The entire street lit up white, sharp, and pure, so bright it made me squint. My mom and I stopped dead. Slowly, we both looked up. Hovering above us was a craft, round, massive, and completely silent. I remember it as if it's burned into my mind. The surface wasn't shiny like metal or chrome, but dull, matte, mechanical, covered with what looked like panels, tubes, and maybe wires. The whole thing looked built, engineered. At the center were 3 large white lights arranged in a perfect triangle, and they were shining straight down on us. Around them were rows of square orange lights, maybe 6, 7, or 8 in a line, curving along the shape of the craft, but not all the way around. Then there were green lights too, arranged in a similar pattern on one side. We stood there just staring. I remember feeling like my heart was trying to climb up my throat. The air was still, no wind, no sound, not even the hum of machinery. Whatever it was hovering, maybe 50 feet across, right above us. And then, I don't remember what happened next. One moment, I was staring up at the lights. The next, I was walking up the porch steps to our trailer. No transition, no sense of movement, just there, like someone had cut out a piece of time. My mother was silent, so was I. I remember thinking how strange that was. She should have been talking, panicking, something, but she wasn't. When she reached for the door, she finally said something. "Tell me you saw that too," she said quietly. "Tell me there was something over us." I nodded. "Yeah," I told her. "I saw it." Then I asked, "Mom, how did we get home?" She just stared at me. Neither of us could remember the craft leaving. We didn't see it rise up or fly off. It was just gone, like it had never been there. Years later, I asked her about that night again. She remembered the shape, the lights, said it was huge and round, but she couldn't recall the details like I could. Her glasses had been broken during the fight earlier, so maybe that's why. But I remember every light, every strange mechanical detail perfectly. I've only told a handful of people in my life about what happened. Most don't believe me. Some say it sounds like an abduction because of the missing time. And I can't say they're wrong. My mom and I both lost a piece of that night, and no matter how hard I try, I can't remember what happened in between. The next day, my mom talked to the landlord at the trailer park. She wasn't the only one who saw it. Apparently, hundreds of people in Colorado Springs reported seeing something strange in the sky that night. I've never forgotten it. Even now, decades later, I think about it all the time. I've wondered about hypnosis or maybe talking to an investigator just to finally know the truth. Because something was there that night, something real, something mechanical, intelligent, and watching us. And I'll never stop wondering what happened during those minutes that are missing from my memory. It was a warm summer morning in June of 2005. One of those bright, clear days when the sky looks endless and the air is perfectly still. I remember it well because I was on my way to work in Fort Mill, South Carolina. I had to go in one Saturday a month for my job. And that morning, I was heading north on I-77 from Rock Hill. It was about 7:30 a.m. The highway was quiet. There weren't any cars in the southbound lanes at all, and only one car ahead of me in my direction, maybe a quarter mile up in the passing lane. I was cruising along in the slow lane, half listening to the radio, not really thinking about anything. Then, without warning, I saw something that made me slam on my brakes. From the sky, straight down from above, 3 enormous clear tubes dropped onto the highway. They didn't fall like solid things. It was more like they descended and then just stopped, locked in place. They were completely see-through, yet somehow still visible, almost like heat ripples or thick glass. The best way I can describe them is that they reminded me of water. They didn't swirl or spin like a water spout, but they wiggled slightly, almost like something alive. I used to live in Florida, and I've seen plenty of water spouts up close. This was nothing like that. These were solid and unmoving at the base, each one touching down right on the pavement. The parts higher up seemed to shift slightly, bending with some invisible current far above, even though there wasn't a breath of wind at ground level. I eased my car to a stop right beside the only other car on the road, the one that had been ahead of me. The man inside looked about 30, and when our eyes met, his jaw was hanging open just like mine. These 3 tubes were massive. The bases looked wide enough to surround a mid-sized car, maybe 14 feet across. I couldn't tell how tall they were because I couldn't see where they ended. They just stretched upward until they disappeared into the sky. They weren't connected to anything that I could see, just there. We sat there in stunned silence, engines idling, watching. The morning sun lit everything clearly. There were no clouds, no haze, nothing that could have caused an illusion. It was just the 2 of us staring at these 3 enormous clear columns that shouldn't have existed. After about a minute, the 2 furthest tubes lifted straight up, one after the other, and vanished into the sky. A few seconds later, the last one, the one closest to our cars, rose up and disappeared too. The man rolled down his window, still looking shaken. "Did you just see that?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "What the hell do you think that was?" He didn't have an answer, and neither did I. Another minute of sitting there in shock, we both just started driving again, like we had silently agreed that whatever it was over, and there was no sense in trying to make sense of it. I never reported it. I didn't even tell anyone for years. I'm an accountant, divorced, with 3 kids. I belong to a local paranormal investigation group, but we deal with hauntings, not UFOs or anything like that. Honestly, I never really believed in that sort of thing. Even now, I'm not sure what I saw. It wasn't a water spout, it wasn't smoke or glass or anything man-made that I can imagine. The memory stayed buried until one day, driving the same stretch of highway, same time of morning, I remembered it clear as day. 3 giant, transparent tubes that came down from the sky, stayed for a moment, and vanished. Whatever they were, I'll never forget them. It was April 21st, 2012, a quiet spring night on Interstate 55, just outside Joliet, Illinois. My girlfriend and I were heading south, the road stretching ahead of us in long, empty lines of light. The clock on the dash read 9:15 p.m. She was driving, and I remember she leaned forward a little, squinting toward the windshield. "Do you see that?" she asked. I followed her gaze, and there they were. 3 points of light glowing like fireballs, gliding silently above the city. They weren't blinking, not like airplane lights, and they weren't falling like meteors. They were steady, deliberate, moving together in a perfect triangle. At first, I tried to explain it away. Maybe low-flying helicopters from the municipal airport nearby, or some kind of training flight. But the more I watched, the more uneasy I felt. These weren't aircraft lights. They looked alive, each one flickering with a warm orange pulse, like fire suspended in the air. I've seen my share of aircraft. I served in the U.S. Air Force from '97 to 2001, and I can tell you, I know the difference between a chopper, a glider, or a jet at low altitude. But these lights didn't belong to any of them. They moved as one, smooth, precise, and utterly silent. No sound of engines, No rhythmic chop of rotor blades, just motion. Out of instinct, I rolled down the passenger window, hoping to catch even the faintest mechanical whine. But there was nothing. Only the wind rushing past the car and the distant hum of the highway. As they passed nearly overhead, we noticed something else. Off to the east, another single fireball moving alone, parallel to the others. It hugged the horizon, just above the tree line, keeping perfect pace. The clouds drifted low that night, scattered and thin, and through them those lights glowed like embers. Judging by the distance, I'd estimate they were maybe 1,000 feet up, low enough to seem within reach, yet impossibly far. We watched as the formation drifted north. Then, one by one, the lights began to fade. The one at the tip of the triangle dimmed first, like someone had turned down a dimmer switch until it vanished completely. The two at the base lingered for a moment longer, their glow flickering weakly before slipping into the dark. And then they were gone. Just like that. No trail, no sound, no sign that anything had been there at all. For a few seconds, we didn't speak. We just kept driving, each of us staring out at the empty sky. Finally, she said quietly, "That wasn't a plane." I didn't answer because deep down, I knew she was right. Later that night, we tried to reason it out. Could it have been military, drones, flares? But nothing fit. I've seen plenty of aircraft maneuver in formation. These weren't that, and they certainly weren't stars or planets. I've spent too many nights stargazing, mapping constellations with Google Sky, learning which lights belong to our heavens and which ones don't. These didn't belong. I don't know what we saw over Joliet that night, only that it was real, and it left a silence between us that words couldn't quite fill. 3 glowing fireballs drifting through the clouds, and one traveling alone. Sometimes, when I drive that stretch of highway, I still look up, half expecting to see them again. Whatever they were, they moved through our sky like ghosts and left us wondering what else might be watching from above. It began at dawn on the morning of April 14th, 1561, a day that would forever mark the skies above the German city of Nuremberg. As the first light of morning crept over the rooftops, the citizens stirred from their beds, drawn outside by a low, unfamiliar hum. The air carried a tension they could not name, the kind that makes one look skyward without knowing why. Then, as if on cue, the heavens above Nuremberg erupted into a spectacle no one could explain. The city lay bathed in soft gold, its medieval spires reaching into a pale sky. But that serenity shattered when strange cylindrical shapes appeared in the east, long, dark forms moving with mechanical precision. From their sides emerged countless orbs and crosses, each glowing with fiery brilliance, darting and weaving as though engaged in battle. Witnesses would later describe what they saw as a great apparition of blood-red spheres, black crosses, and discs that moved as if in combat. Some said they clashed so violently that the air seemed to shudder. Others reported seeing the shapes change color, from red to blue to black, and tumble earthward as if struck. For a city accustomed to omens and portents, this was not merely a curiosity of the heavens, it was a message. In that age, the skies were a sacred realm, a canvas upon which the divine and the mysterious could be painted. Comets, eclipses, and new stars were interpreted as heavenly warnings, but this was something altogether different. The chronicler Hans Glasser, a printer by trade, captured the event in a broadsheet published shortly after. His words, written in the language of wonder and fear, told of many large black globes and crosses of blood-red color that fought for hours before falling to earth in smoke and flame. Glasser's woodcut depicted the scene in vivid detail: orbs, cylinders, and crosses crisscrossing the sky, the sun caught in the midst of the chaos, as though itself part of the conflict. His account would become one of the earliest known reports of a mass aerial phenomenon, centuries before the concept of UFOs would even exist. Imagine the fear that gripped the people of Nuremberg. Church bells rang as citizens gathered in open squares, their eyes fixed upward in disbelief. Fathers shielded their children, mothers clutched rosaries, and the clergy declared it a sign from God, perhaps a divine warning for humanity's sins. Yet, despite the terror, there was also awe. Witnesses describe a light brighter than the sun and movements so deliberate they seemed guided by intent. When the display finally ended, several of the glowing spheres appeared to fall to earth outside the city walls, vanishing in clouds of smoke that lingered for hours. Many believed the end of days was upon them. But when the sun rose higher and the air cleared, no wreckage was found, no sign of fire or fallen metal, only shaken citizens and the uneasy silence of a city that had glimpsed something beyond its understanding. Rumors spread quickly. Some said heavenly armies had clashed above the earth. Others whispered that it was a struggle between celestial beings, angels and demons locked in combat over the fate of mankind. Whatever it was, the people of Nuremberg knew they had seen something real. Hans Glasser's broadsheet ensured that the event would not fade into rumor. His detailed illustration, painted for all to see, remains one of history's most striking depictions of unexplained aerial activity. It shows the moment not as myth, but as an eyewitness record, a testimony to an encounter so profound it blurred the line between miracle and terror. Centuries passed, and the morning of April 14, 1561, became a story preserved in wood and ink. Hans Glasser's broadsheet survived, carried through generations, studied by historians, theologians, and eventually ufologists. It recorded a battle in the sky, a phenomenon seen by hundreds yet explainable by none. Modern science has offered theories. Perhaps it was atmospheric optics, sundogs, halos, or reflections of light through ice crystals. Perhaps fragments of a meteor shower, glowing and tumbling, triggered collective awe. But even these explanations cannot fully capture the shapes and movements described. Rods, spheres, crosses, and tubes engaged in apparent conflict for minutes on end, observed calmly by an entire city. Psychologists suggest another lens, the power of collective perception. A city steeped in religious symbolism, witnessing strange light and motion, could interpret ordinary phenomena as extraordinary. Yet, skepticism alone cannot erase the records, precise, detailed, and consistent, written and illustrated at the moment by Glasser himself. In the 20th century, when UFO reports became common, the Nuremberg event was rediscovered. Scholars and enthusiasts were struck by its eerie resemblance to modern sightings, discs, globes, and cylindrical craft, all moving intelligently across the sky. Even the so-called mothership motif, the long rod releasing smaller spheres, appears centuries before humans had imagined space travel. The Nuremberg sighting reminds us that encounters with the unknown are not new. Humanity has been looking up, questioning the heavens, and recording impossible events for centuries. Each era interprets the unknown through its own lens. In 1561, Nuremberg citizens saw a battle of angels and demons. In the Cold War, similar lights were interpreted as alien craft or secret military experiments. Today, some consider interdimensional or energy-based explanations forces beyond our current understanding. What endures is the wonder, the fear, and the humility of those who looked upward and saw something extraordinary. The legacy of Nuremberg is more than a historical curiosity. It's a mirror of human perception, how we seek meaning in the unknown, how fear and awe shape our understanding of the cosmos, how one morning, long before rockets, computers, and satellites, a city witnessed something that defied explanation. Glasser's woodcut, still preserved in Zurich's Central Library, remains a testament to that moment, a frozen record of light, motion, and mystery. No debris, no scientific trace, no conclusive explanation exists, yet the image endures, a reminder that for all our progress, the sky above us is still a place of wonder, a stage for the impossible. The people of 1561 looked up and saw a mystery. We look up still more than 460 years later, and the questions remain. What moved in the skies over Nuremberg that April morning? We may never know, but the story endures. The sky still holds its secrets. The night is quiet again. The lights have faded, the echoes have gone. But for those who were there, the question remains, what did they see? And what perhaps saw them? Until next time, keep your eyes and your mind open.